Okay, so I've gone through and programmed like 32 bars of bassline action. So let's just have a listen to what I've done. So as you can hear, I've used every sound that I'd made, and it's very much like a kind of call and response between the main Reeses and these sine, sort of white noise sine, that sound. So if I investigate this a bit further, double click to open up the MIDI. So here's all the MIDI notes that I've got going on, and just trying to make everything not, well, like everything needs its space, you know. So with this sound particularly, the playing with how I've got that attack. So if I highlight the channel, so how the sound has quite a lot of attack for this part. So as opposed to making the notes overlap, which gives it a different kind of quality and just sort of keeps it interesting to me. If I open up the modulation tab, you can see where it's like drawing in some pitch bend information just to kind of keep it rolling along and keep what is essentially a very simple set of notes. You know, it's just semitones. It's not particularly complex musically, but just making it seem interesting in different ways. So having it do these pitch bends. Just sort of adds a bit of drama into the sound. The same with this noise as well. If it actually worked, there we go. So you can see just drawing in like pitch bends just to kind of give it a bit more character. And sort of varying between making the notes stop like just one kind of 16th shorter. And if I show you the modulation tab, yep, just as I was doing before, just drawing in the modulation so the cutoff changes. You know, and then here switching it up so that the resampled Reese comes in. So this one is slightly more tricky in the sense that I didn't want to have the sample restarting over and over because I want all that resampled modulation to kind of play out and it makes it sound interesting. So if I just show you. So here, obviously, I've got the modulation, which is assigned to our filter cutoff, sweeping about. But to make the notes follow the same pattern as the original bassline, I've had to draw it in as pitch information. Because if I was to play it, like you can tell it's been resampled. I'm not really a fan of that. So if I drew it in, it just kind of adds movement and makes it sound a bit cooler and a bit more exciting. So doing that kind of thing was really, it's a little bit laborious, but it makes it, yeah, I think it sounds better than having the sample restart like that. you know, and where I've got the LFO attached to the pitch bend as well, it's making that work. So there's a lot of room to play with where you position the note on the piano roll and how you draw in the pitch bend. So rather, you could do a high note, but setting the, so then you've got setting the pitch bend low. So it's a slower kind of oscillating rate. So you're just leaving yourself open, like with, or leaving yourself with as many options open as possible, that kind of thing. Here again, it's just a kind of call and response. So just adding in a part of the original bass line again, keeping the wow the same pretty much. That's just sort of like a filler part, and using this you know, so there we go. So just copying, literally copying this part over, but because it's the sister sound, as it were, it just makes it seem more interesting again. And it's the same kind of MIDI information. I've literally just copied the part straight over, but it's just an alternate because it's a different sound. And then finally, using my resampled chuggy bass, as it were, here. If we look at the pitch information, that's kind of doing everything. So it's just a lot of just slight adjustments on this pitch to get it to be in time. That's how I was thinking of that. And just sneaking in a little sine wub. So if we play it together, you can hear. Then literally using my alternate main Reese, so this guy, and just varying it up again. So variation between the notes, sort of going low to high, high to low, not really adding any new notes as such, and just having fun with the pitch bend. And the same again with this as well. So just sort of adjusting what the pitch is doing to kind of keep it interesting. And then finally onto this section here, where it's kind of everything all together. So the same whoops coming in, and just changing the first note of this kind of round of the sort of these noises. So the first note, that, and then this guy carries on. So, and the only slight alteration I've made is on our resampled bass. I've added an auto filter, and if we hit A, it brings up the automation tab. I've assigned the auto filter cutoff and made it bypassed, but when it gets to here, the filter will come on, so then it sounds. So it's doing some sort of fairly heavy filtering. So if we just open it up and have a look, I've assigned it to a band pass, fatness all the way up, LFO, as you can see here, stereo phase a little bit, similar stuff to how I was before, 1/2 triplet. And it's just kind of, again, providing a bit of variation just to kind of finish off that round of 32. So with this kind of thing, I would just say it's a lot of kind of trialing and erroring until you stumble upon something that you like, and you can constantly go back and tweak it, and just being sort of quite neat with your MIDI, I suppose. So trying to have it that there's not many overlapping notes. If I select everything, you can see that there's not really anything that's overlapping. unless it's supposed to. Like all the separate basses, I've given them just enough space to get out of each other's way. And probably at a later stage, I'll end up bouncing all of this stuff down to audio and doing a lot of fades and crossfades just to make sure there's nothing overlapping and no little kind of erroneous peaks and spikes. But for the moment, I'd say this is pretty good. So let's move on and let's start talking about some bus processing.